Tribunal begins with one of the most unsettling interruptions in Morrowind. You go to sleep, and someone tries to kill you. Not a prophecy, not a dream, an assassination attempt. That opening immediately changes the scale of the story. Morrowind's original campaign was about discovering the truth behind a national religion and confronting the living god who had built his power on a stolen source of divinity. Tribunal asks what happens afterward, when the old gods are still worshipped, but everyone knows they can bleed. Its central idea is simple. Tribunal is a story about power after the miracle is gone. Almalexia, Sothasil, and Vivek were once god-kings because they used the heart of Lorcan. But after the Nerevarine destroys the heart, the Tribunal's immortality is no longer guaranteed. The gods of Morrowind are becoming mortal, and Almalexia cannot accept what that means. The adventure starts when the Nerevarine is attacked by assassins from the Dark Brotherhood. Following the trail leads to Mournhold, the ancient capital of Morrowind and the seat of both King Helseth and the Tribunal Temple. Mournhold is deliberately different from Vvardenfell. It is polished, ceremonial, and crowded with monuments to the past. But beneath those grand streets are sewers, ruins, prisons, and political conspiracies. That contrast is the first major argument Tribunal makes. Mournhold's public image is a performance. The city presents the Tribunal as eternal protectors, while everyone underneath is dealing with fear, corruption, and violence. The player becomes useful to both of Mournhold's competing powers. King Helseth wants the assassination attempts against him investigated, and Almalexia wants problems threatening the temple dealt with. Helseth represents the new political order, a mortal ruler backed by the Empire, intelligence networks, and practical power. Almalexia represents the old religious order, where loyalty is supposed to come from worship rather than law. Neither is especially trustworthy. Helseth is calculating and ruthless, but at least his motives are recognizable. He wants control. Almalexia speaks in the language of compassion, tradition, and protection, but her requests gradually reveal something more disturbing. She does not simply want danger removed, she wants the people of Mournhold to believe that only she can save them. The player investigates cults, assassins, traitors, and threats beneath the city. These quests can feel disconnected at first, but they build an important pattern. Mournhold is full of people trying to preserve an image of stability, while the foundations are collapsing. The temple's authority depends on the Tribunal being seen as all-powerful. The assassination attempts suggest that image is already failing. Then, the crisis becomes impossible to hide. Mechanical creatures called fabricants attack Plaza Brindisi, Dorum. They are not ordinary soldiers. They are artificial beings connected to the strange technology of Sothasil, the most secretive member of the Tribunal. The attack seems to point directly toward him. A passage beneath the plaza opens into Bams Amshend, an ancient Dwemer complex buried below Mournhold, and the city's political mystery becomes a theological one. Who is attacking Mournhold? Why would Sothasil send machines against his own people? And why is Almalexia so eager for the Nerevarine to investigate? The answer is that Almalexia has created the crisis herself. Her power is fading. Her people are frightened. Sothasil has withdrawn into his clockwork city, and Vivek remains distant. Almalexia sees an opportunity, manufacture a threat, defeat it publicly, and emerge as the one god who still has the strength to protect Morrowind. That plan explains why the questline repeatedly sends the player into danger on her behalf. The Nerevarine is not merely a champion. They are a tool in Almalexia's political theater. Every victory can be turned into evidence that her enemies are real, and that her authority is necessary. This is where Tribunal connects most strongly to the original Morrowind story. In the base game, the player learns that the Tribunal's divinity is not the same thing as moral legitimacy. Tribunal pushes that idea further. Once the power behind a god begins to disappear, what remains may be personality, memory, fear, and ambition. To confront Sothasil, the player must recover and reforge Trueflame, the sword associated with Indaural Nerevar. That detail matters symbolically. The Nerevarine is once again placed in the role of Nerevar's successor, carrying the past into a world that no longer knows what to do with it. The sword is not just a weapon for the final dungeon. It is a reminder that every faction in Morrowind is fighting over the meaning of history. With Trueflame restored, the Nerevarine enters Sothasil's clockwork city. This should be the triumphant reveal of a mysterious god, but Tribunal chooses something colder. The city is vast, intricate, and almost completely devoid of ordinary life. It feels less like a kingdom than a machine built to continue operating after its creator has stopped caring whether anyone understands it. At the end of the Clockwork City, the player finds Sotha Sil dead. There is no grand battle, no final speech from the architect of the machine, just a corpse in the center of his own impossible creation. Then Almalexia appears. She reveals that she killed Sotha Sil and that she was responsible for the attacks in Mournhold. Her plan was to use Sotha Sil's machines, the city's panic, and the Nerevarines' victories to establish herself as the only power capable of restoring order. She also intends to use the Nerevarines' death or the death of Sotha Sil as a martyrdom story that would justify a new order under her control. But the confession is not really a victory speech. It is a breakdown. Almalexia has spent the entire expansion trying to prove that she is still a god. By the end, she has become obsessed with the idea that everyone else is trying to take that status from her. Her fear of mortality has transformed into paranoia, and her desire to protect Morrowind has curdled into a desire to possess it. She attacks the Nerevarine, wielding Hopsfire, and the final boss battle is the inevitable result of everything the story has established. The player is not killing a distant villain who suddenly appeared at the end. They are killing the last consequence of a god who could not survive being treated like a person. After Almalexia dies, Azura appears outside the temple. Her message frames the ending in mythic terms. The Tribunal's fall is part of the fulfillment of the Nerevarine prophecy. The heart is gone, Sotha Sil is dead, and Almalexia has been destroyed. The era of the MSI Tribunal is ending, even if Morrowind's people are not ready to admit it. And that leads to the fairest criticism of Tribunal. The expansion can be overly linear, with the Nerevarine accepting task after task from Almalexia, despite having every reason to distrust her. Sotha Sil, one of the most important figures in Morrowind's history, is barely present before his death. Much of the final explanation arrives in a long speech rather than through scenes the player gets to witness. Those criticisms are valid. Tribunal sometimes tells us the tragedy instead of dramatizing it, but the basic shape of the story remains powerful. This is not really an adventure about saving Mournhold. It is about discovering that the city's defenders are protecting an illusion. The old gods are not eternal. The king is not benevolent. The assassins are only the visible part of a deeper political sickness. Tribunal ends with the Nerevarines standing in the ruins of a divine order, having defeated the person who most desperately wanted that order to continue. The gods of Morrowind did not fall because they were challenged by something greater. They fell because once their power began to fade, they had to reveal what they were without it. And now Malexia's answer was to become the monster her people needed her to fear. For more videos like this, stick around, subscribe, and give the video a like. Thanks for watching. See you next time.